Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. We have a great show on hand tonight, and if you want to really understand what this show is going to be about, you might need AARP. Is what you might need, and you'll get an idea what I'm talking about. Before I get to that, I want to introduce a crew that will be bringing you this show tonight. George Eichhorn, welcome back, buddy.
Hey, good to be here, Scott. Thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
All right, and Mr. Opinion, I'm sure you'll have plenty of them, won't you?
Oh, absolutely. I always have a lot of tricks in my bag.
No, bag of tricks, but the tricks in your bag. Okay, you can use it either way. I think the phrase goes either way, but that's fine. We'll see him any minute now. And Eric Katz wearing his Yankee hat, and I'm wearing my King of the Road hat. I'm taking a road trip to the Tampa Bay area tomorrow, but he's got his Yankee cap, which, by the way, is in Tampa anyway. So welcome back, Eric.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
And last week he didn't make it because went to a Brewers game. So, therefore we excused his absence because he was putting it in a diamond way. All right. So with that said, our first topic of the night is the San Diego Padres' notable long-term commitments with final year and age or end of a deal. And I'm going to break down each and every player, and then each of y'all can comment on it. Obviously, I call this called job security part of the program. So you got Manny Machado ringing in at $350 million, 2033, 41 years of age. For Fernando Tatis Jr., $340 million, 2034, at age 36. Boy, they get younger, don't they? Xander Bogaerts, fresh from the Boston Red Sox, $280 million, 2033, at 41. Yu Darvish, boy, we take a sharp bit of a decline here. Only gets paid $108 million to 2028 when he's 42. And Joe Musgrove, $100 million, 2027 when he's 35. And last but not least, the latest guy that got a long-term deal, Jake Cronenworth, $80 million, goes through 2030 at age 37. All right, George Eichhorn, since you are the senior member of this broadcast, I might as well lead off with you. Yes.
Yeah, I qualify for AARP and so many of these other guys. I'm telling you, these long-term deals, these owners just won't get it. They don't get it. They don't want to get it because they want to win. They want to buy a championship. So you're just throwing money out the door, really. I mean, we saw it with the Tigers. We had it with the Tigers. Finally, Yelich unfortunately passed away and gave the team to his son, and his son says, wait a minute, we're not going to hand these stuff out like we used to before. So, Cabrera is the last year on his contract, but that's a special case. I'm not comparing.
Yeah, but we're talking about the San Diego Padres. We're not.
Yes, I know. Okay. I just think it's too much. I think you're going to have situations where these guys are going to get hurt. They're not even going to last the lifetime of these contracts. And it's going to be hard to move them, too, because that's so much money that's tied up. Most of the other teams won't want to take them. I just think it's too much, Scott. I mean, I think the San Diego's gone a little bit overboard, especially with the guys, like you said, that are up there in age or will be up there in age once this deal comes to fruition.
Rick?
Yeah, I agree. These agents are the ones that are causing the problems. It's these agents that tell them, my guy should get a 10-year, 12-year deal. Why? What happened to the 5, even 7-year deals that I used to see when I was growing up? You got a 6-year deal. That was a long time. And now they got these 12, 15, 20-year deals. And Machado and Tatis, two of the biggest boneheads in all of baseball, the most selfish, biggest whiner crybabies that need to grow up. I wouldn't pay them for a whole year because they're not going to win with these guys. And you're not even thinking about injuries. So once you get past like 35 or even your early 30s, you're not in your prime anymore. You're not going to be any good. And good luck trying to ship them out because who's going to take on those big contracts? So the problem with sports in general is these agents. They're the ones that are causing all these problems because they're the ones saying, my man deserves 10 years. If this guy got a 7-year deal, my guy should get a 10-year deal. And that's the problem with sports today.
Eric?
Well, as far as those deals go, for the size of the market that San Diego is, it's probably closer into the range of like not really Milwaukee because Milwaukee's the smallest, but just a little bit bigger than Milwaukee. I'm not sure where they're finding this money I mean, after all, Tijuana's nearby, so I guess.
I know, I've been there.
And there must be money coming from there. But anyway, these guys, as far as that goes, what's going to happen is there's always that decline with these long-term deals. We've seen it over and over and over again. It keeps on repeating itself. Yet the owners make these mistakes over and over again and not learning from their decisions, which I do applaud the younger Illich for realizing this, that you got to develop talent, and then you got to develop a core, which is how you're supposed to do it. Then you bring in guys to support that core. That's kind of how the Yankees did it after George Steinbrenner was suspended for a little bit. But they're going to be set up to a point where they're going to be in for a nice long rebuild, and it's not going to be pretty. So they better go get that championship now, like possibly two rings they're all in for. Otherwise it'll be maybe an even longer decade of them being out of the postseason, because they already had a situation where they were out for a while, which granted, they had a very nice farm system during that time, where you got a Tatis and you had a Musgrove and you had a bunch of other guys, but now you pretty much you're setting yourself up for, in the future where it's going to get bad. I mean, this is it's not different sport, but look at the Rams of LA. No first round picks for the next, 7+ years, I believe. But because they went all in for that Super Bowl ring, which, it's a ring, which everybody wants which that's ultimately why you're in there. So I guess mission accomplished, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be contending for a while.
Well, here's the deal with San Diego. Once upon a time, they had 3 professional franchises. Don't forget the San Diego Chargers and San Diego Clippers, and now they're a market where their Padres are the only game in town. So where are you going to go? You only have one. So I've always liked those markets are the only game in town, but this time they really are the only game in town. Whether you count the San Diego State Aztecs, another story, but one professional team. Here's the thing that we have to understand, and that's this, that the Padres have only been to 2 World Series, and they've come up empty-handed in both of them. So that's why they want this ring in the worst way. I'll give them credit for this much, okay? At least they're trying to get it. Whether these moves pan out is another story, but I got to give them credit. They make some bad mistakes, try to get out from under those mistakes. Any organization that keeps trying to win, you really can't lean on them too bad. And I think you're right. A lot of these contracts, who knows what they're going to look like on the back end, but they're in win now mode. And they brought in Bob Melvin from the A's to do it.
They got a good man in Bob Melvin.
Yeah, I thought they had a shot last year, but now we're in 23. So, again, I'll reiterate one last time. I give them credit for trying. And that's an awful lot of money. We have long-term security, right? For a lot of these guys. We'll just see how it plays out. And I haven't even talked about Josh Hader. I'm sure they'll probably extend him a little bit, but he doesn't come into the range of what these guys are.
Right. So, yeah. And again, I look back at those Detroit years with Mr. Illich, and from about 2004 to 2012, 13, I mean, they had a long stretch there where he was dishing out the money left and right. They got to 2 World Series, didn't win them.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's stay in San Diego. Okay. No, not La Jolla, but San Diego, although I love La Jolla. You talked about Tijuana. I've been there a couple of times. Did a little bit of negotiating there. Certainly not a place that you'd want to have a resort at, but we'll leave that alone. But let's talk about Tony Gwynn. He's the all-time assist leader for San Diego State basketball with 590. Can you imagine that, George?
No, I mean, when I saw that really stood out. That's amazing. I mean, 590 is incredible, and what an accomplishment. I mean, I really think that I've always admired him anyways, but that even makes me admire him even more.
Well, that's why I brought it in the broadcast, because everybody knows that Tony Gwynn's a good baseball player, but do they realize what a pretty good basketball player? He could have made it either way. A lot of guys are certainly going to go to their preferred sport, and obviously he was certainly a better baseball player. I can tell you many players, whether it's Kirk Gibson was a good baseball player, ended up taking baseball full time, and I'm sure the list goes on and on. But we'll keep it focused on Tony Gwynn, and yet this guy, to me, You know, he could hit any kind of pitching. I'll never forget that inspiring moment at Fenway Park when he was next to Ted Williams. I mean, that just blows you away. So, but
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn, Rick Curdy, did you realize he was that good of a basketball player?
I heard he was he did play basketball. I didn't know how good he was. I think he did get drafted in the NBA too. So a lot of these athletes are just great two-way players. I know Dave Winfield played basketball. I mean, like you said, the list could go on and on. LeBron James was a great wide receiver, and he chose basketball. So these athletes are so great. I'm glad he chose baseball because I mean, to me, he was the greatest hitter I've ever seen in my life was Tony Gwynn, and so he was just a true artist, phenomenal. Unfortunately, we lost him too young. You know, that's the sad part. I wish he was still around.
Yeah.
You know, kind of teach these young folks to how to hit instead of hitting baseballs. But great athlete and just a great athlete all around. So.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad you brought it up. I just want to let people know Tony Gwynn died of mouth cancer because he had too much chewing tobacco. So, for any of you kids out there that are looking at chewing tobacco, you could get mouth cancer, and it's very painful. It's too bad we lost undoubtedly one of the best hitters in our generation for sure. So, all right, Eric.
Well, it comes to show you just how much of a freak of nature he really was.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew he played basketball. I didn't realize he was that good at basketball. Where you know he might have been able to actually have a decent NBA career. But you know, I'm kind of glad he didn't though. Which obviously, which the crazy thing about Gwynn is, if Pete Rose were to get a hit every single at bat, if he came back and got a hit every single at bat, Tony Gwynn would still have a higher average than him. And, you know, that just comes to show you just how just athletic this guy is. I mean, he's the best all-around hitter. Probably the last guy you could probably compare Ted Williams to. You could compare to Ted Williams. Just a guy who could hit all fields, make contact, you know, just one of the last truly great hitters of the generation.
Yeah, I think it was a guy that was making a run at that 400 mark, but came up a little bit short. So
394.
Was it 394? Yeah, he was pretty close. So
I've
always loved Tony Gwynn. You know?
Even after the strike, he made some runs at it.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. And when I saw this thing, there was no doubt I was going to bring it up, and I wanted to make sure that I had all four of us to talk about it. And the reason why is when you're surprised that an elite hitter could be that good on the hard court, my goodness. And yet his character was just unbelievable, too. And you want to talk about a guy, Mr. San Diego. I'd like to think Tony Gwynn would be it. He could run for mayor of that state or any place he wanted, and he'd be revered anyways. All right.
I'd love to see him and Trevor Hoffman go for that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's go back to AARP. And George was kind of dancing around it a little bit. So we'll talk about the oldest MLB players. We'll begin it with Rich Hill of Pittsburgh. Don't worry, Mark Mancini. Okay. You know, I wouldn't classify him as a real Cy Young Award winner, but the fact that he's pitching at 43, more power to him for your Pirates. And you, Ralph Williams, too. Okay. So you can be long-winded about him. Nelson Cruz, 42, with the San Diego Padres. Adam Wainwright is still going strong with the St. Louis Cardinals. And yes, George, we're familiar with Justin Verlander of the Mets. Cabrera, who's at 40. Cabrera, 39 with the Tigers. I think I did mention Wainwright was 41 and Cruz 42. So let me keep going through the list. Jesse Chavez of the Atlanta Braves at 39. Joey Votto, 39 of Cincinnati. Zach Greinke, 39 of Kansas City. Charlie Morton, 39 of Atlanta. And we're back to San Diego for Craig Stammen. So there you go, George. Size up this AARP list.
Oh, you got a lot of good people in there, a lot of good names, obviously. It's amazing how some of them can extend themselves that long. I mean, you know, you talk about this, but you also have to realize that they had some injuries. Most of those guys had injuries and lost a little bit of time. Verlander had injuries. Cabrera had injuries. I mean, we saw it here in Detroit. But most of those people that you've mentioned obviously have extended themselves quite a bit. And I think what's important to remember is the fact that they would not be around if they did not have quality still in them. Okay, a quality in the sense of being able to throw, being able to hit, being able to field. You know, the thing is yeah, some of them got the big deals like Cabrera, but they extended themselves out with long-term deals. But the fact of the matter is, if somebody still wants to pay him money, we know guys like Nolan Ryan went on a long, long time. And no question about it, there are others too that have done that, and obviously Brady in football. But I'm not totally against a guy pitching or hitting that many years, but I want to say that I wish that they could produce at a decent clip and not be, obviously in the case of Cabrera, more of a liability at the plate or but I know Miguel has other things obviously we've talked about before he brings to the table. So I'm not trying to pick on him, but I'm just saying most of the times when you get guys that are that old, you're hoping they got a little bit of juice still left in them.
Well, the only thing I can say about Cabrera, at least he's able to contribute in the clubhouse as a
That's
mentor and an iconic figure. But yeah, they're paying him a lot of money to do that. But baseball contracts are guaranteed, and there is no salary cap. So as a result, a lot of these guys, in the NFL, it's a different story. You're not producing 1 year, they run you out of the league, or whatever. But baseball, you make a good living and your contracts are guaranteed. And that's why a lot of these guys that have moved over to baseball made wise business decisions. I was kind of surprised that Kyler Murray didn't, but he was looking at the immediate money that the Cardinals, but then again, he would have wound up with the Oakland A's or now the eventual Las Vegas A's. So I'm not going to get into that. But the reality is there is no salary cap. And a lot of the times those back ends of those contracts are just simply not good. But but people are paying them. They had to do some decent training and off-season stuff in order to maintain the interest of all these clubs. All right, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, I feel old because I remember seeing these players when they were like in their 20s and 30s. So, a lot of these guys, I know they've, I remember seeing Charlie Huff. He looked like he was 60 years old when he pitched. These knuckleball pitchers could pitch in their 50s. And I remember Julio Franco, who was allegedly like in his late 40s when he played. And with that batting stance, that was a wild batting stance. So it's amazing what you can do to yourself. There are players that extend their careers for a very long time. And others, you see, what's his name? Tua from the Dolphins, who's always getting hurt, and he's a young guy. So it just depends on your make, your body. A lot of it's dieting. A lot of it's just taking care of yourself. Probably they don't drink or smoke or anything like that. That helps a lot too. So kudos to these guys because they're around my age. And I get out of bed, my back hurts. So I can't do what they do, especially in hitting. That would be the hardest. And the pitching. But I know Frank Tanana, I remember when he reinvented himself as a flamethrower, and then all of a sudden he was this herky-jerky breaking ball guy. So kudos to them to still play, and they still have that desire, which is the important thing, the desire to play.
All right, I should point out that the audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. So there you go. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. Okay. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. So, and you go ahead and subscribe. You'll get all the notifications that we're going to be on and what show. Also, please comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Please send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com, and we'll go out there and pair you with the show that you'd be able to do. Also, if you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. All right. Ralph Williams obviously has been paying attention, so we'll give him a little bit of shout.
Hey, Ralph.
Hello, Mr. Williams. How you doing? My deepest condolences to your nephew, by the way. So rest in peace. But Rich Hill, pitcher for the Pirates, 43 years old. We talked about him. More power to you. I hope you can get some productivity out of him. So there you go. All right, Eric, it's your time to comment on the oldest MLB players.
Part of it is players like they've been in better shape than they ever have before, and another reason too is these facilities are just they're state of the art, better than ever. These aren't your typical like spring training, which where you have your field and you might have a weight room and whatever, and that'd be that. But no, they got these labs, they got these places that kind of are more more individualized, that work with specific position. They got position coaches now. It's unbelievable. Just players are in better shape now. Obviously they've taken tobacco and cigarettes out of the game and other things like that. So that's also helped them kind of last longer. But it comes to show you that just how far the game has come. I mean, good for them for being able to stay in shape that long and have that desire to play. Because eventually, like they say in Moneyball, we're told at some point we can no longer play the children's game, and clearly these guys haven't been told yet that they're still playing it well into their 40s, which it used to be closers would last a while because they come out every other game or every few games or whatever, once in a while, maybe back-to-back saves, and then maybe 3 games, but then they'd be unavailable for about a game. But obviously, it's a testament to show just how far the game has come, just with its training, with its facilities, with their fields, with their coaching. Because now coaching staffs it used to be the pitching coach and the hitting coach. That was it. Now they got a coach for, I feel like, everything.
Well, the amazing part about let's just go over the pitchers per se. You got Rich Hill, who's 43, Adam Wainwright's 41, Justin Verlander 40. You have Zach Greinke, who's 39, and then you have Charlie Morton. Half that list, I don't know, is Stamen a pitcher or not? I'm trying to remember. I don't pay attention to them that much, but you got 5 pitchers out of this group anyway. So,
and especially the kudos to JV. I mean, coming back from Tommy John surgery. I mean, that's just phenomenal. The year that he had last year, unfortunately, he's on the injury list right now for the Mets. But I agree. And Eric, you made a good point about the conditioning that these guys are in, and I know Rick, you mentioned it too. The facilities, the diets, the training regimen. It's all for the players.
It also helps that they took out the drugs and tobacco and whatever out of the game. So that also factors in, because obviously back in the day, all of us remember they used to use that stuff like no tomorrow. Like I'm sure we remember Jim Leland just having a lung dart in the dugout. But now all that's kind of gone. Now they no longer want it in the game. They specifically banned it from the game. They won't even allow it near the club in the stadium, even much like some of them don't even allow it in the concourse area. But they took a lot of that out, so it definitely factors into guys being able to play for a longer periods of time.
Well, the amazing part about the list now, because I looked it up, is Stamen's of pitchers. You got 6 out of the 10 guys are pitchers. That's amazing, and that
it
really
is.
Well,
it helps that they it also helps that they're not throwing them out there for long periods of time anymore.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, managers are forced to handle the game differently, go 1 or 2 innings and all that. We often criticize the NBA, and rightfully so, for load management when it comes to talking about pitchers and players in baseball. When you're going 162 games strong, plus you have spring training, I might understand the cautious part of it a bit more with a much more marathon type of season than you do at the NBA. You hate to see guys miss games, but I'm a little bit more tolerant of it in baseball, and the baseball players have a much different psychological mindset than the basketball players. All right, last topic of the night before we go to parting shot. Let's talk about the new MLB pitch clock. Seems to be working. We'll compare a couple of seasons here. The 2022 regular season, the average time of the game, 3 hours, 6 minutes. 2023 opening weekend, average time of game, 2 hours, 38 minutes. And we'll talk about the new rules of 2023 include the pitch clock, the larger bases, banning the shift, pickoff restrictions. All right, George Eichhorn.
Well, so far so good, I guess you'd say. Most of the people, I'm kind of in the minority. I was not in favor of the pitch clock, but most of the time that's been shaved off has been beneficial. I mean, most people are happy about it. Some people got even happier when the Tigers moved their games up, for example, to start at 6:40 on weeknights instead of 7:10. So now they're really getting out early in downtown Detroit and getting back on the freeways or wherever they're going back home. I think that so far, it's worked out pretty well, especially the clock. There's a few minor things they're going to probably tweak over the next half year to a year, but basically, I think the rule changes have been pretty good so far.
Yeah, I've yet to see a game. I hope to at some point. Don't know. My schedule's pretty busy, but time will tell. I'll let you know when I do see one. But I got it. My plate for the month of April is really stacked. But from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they extend beer sales into the 8th inning in some of these ballparks?
I'm glad you mentioned that,
In
Scott.
Milwaukee.
A couple of towns have done it. No, is Milwaukee
Okay.
one of them, Eric?
Yes, they're actually, yep, they started doing that at the game that I went to when they were facing the Mets, which I was a little surprised about the beer man still going around the eighth, because normally I'm used to them capping it around the seventh inning. But it was kind of nice though.
I understand it's suggested by MLB to cap them at 7. It's not mandatory though, from the research I did. So we'll wait and see. Now there's only 2 or 3, 4 teams maybe that have changed it, but yeah, that's going to take out of their concession sales. These games flying by so quickly.
Yeah,
Well,
that's why they did it.
Right, they're trying to find a way to compensate. All right, let me turn over to Rick Curdy. What are your thoughts about the changes to clock and so forth?
I love the pitching clock. I've seen a game with the pitching clock at the Knights game, and honestly, you don't even pay attention to it. But they had to make the game shorter because they have lost the young people today. Their attention span is that of a mosquito, and so a lot of them, everybody, we're living a fast society, and baseball's not like that. So they had to do something. I'm a creature of habit, but I understand why they do it. And I love to see this, and I'm happy that stolen bases are coming back. That's another lost start. Stolen bases have increased dramatically ever since the pitch clock. So I'm happy to see those two things. And maybe that's why they got bigger bases. I don't know. But I'm glad that the stolen bases are coming back as well. So I don't have a problem with it. Anything to make the game better for today's society, because they had to do it for today's society. Back in my era, it wouldn't have made sense. But in today's era, we're in a fast-paced society. They had to do something. So I'm really happy that they did these changes, and and hopefully we can bring younger people back into the game.
Yeah, two of the other things that you point out, I like what I've seen on television with the banning of the shift, where they've made it where 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And yet lots of clubs are trying to keep them close to the bases to keep it close to doing it, but not doing it. And the pickoff restrictions, that might have been a little out of control too. So I'll turn it over to Eric.
I mean, it took a little while for me to adjust to it, just because I've been doing this for over 20 plus years, and baseball has been the same. But there's some positives to take out of it. Number one, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to go to a game during the week. Because instead of like you're getting out at like, let's say game starts around 7, and you're getting out at like midnight. It's kind of ridiculous. And obviously, extended beer sales. That's good. That's great for you. That's great for people like myself, which I say that with a smile. And I mean, it took a little adjusting, but there's a lot of positives to gain out of it. I'd say banning the shift, I'm telling you, that thing will just bother me like no tomorrow. It basically took the offense out of the game. I mean, I get great plays are going to happen. I get outs are going to happen, and I get you're going to have a 0-0 ball game. But, people want runs. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we want to see the points, and I think getting rid of the shift does that. I think bringing back stolen bases is very fun because, the only teams that were really doing it were the Yankees were a little bit last year, a little more than average last year. But I think having the speed part of the game return is going to be awesome. So we're going to be seeing people steal 30 and 40 plus bases again, which I think is exciting. But overall, it took an adjustment, but I'm loving what's come out of it. I mean, does it need some work? Yeah, but like anything when you roll it out, it's not going to be perfect. So I'm sure there'll be stuff that they address in the off season. And overall, it just makes it easier to go to a game during the week, and you're going to see a lot more people attending, during the week and during the weekend. So it just makes it easier. It just makes it easier on the fans, which the guys who have work the next day. Well, we don't necessarily want to leave early, but we have to because we have to go to that thing that pays our bills at the end of the day.
Yeah, Don Mattingly used to tell me, and we talked about it a lot when he was managing the Marlins, that you know what, you can have all the rule changes you want and you complain about them, but you know what, they're still going to be enforced. So either you live with them, nothing you can do about it, nothing to change. We all know that when I was talking about the subject, at that time you had the mound visit, and then you had a couple of other rules that were, and then they brought on a lot more of the radical changes. And let me address the stolen base situation. Even if you're going out there and stealing more bases, it won't matter. None of those stolen base records are ever going to get broken because the guys that set them, to me, they're safe. There's records being broken, stolen bases won't. But yeah, if it helps improve the game. But I always like to go back to Don Mattingly because I used to learn so much from the skip. It's unbelievable, And there isn't, when they say Donnie Baseball, they say it for a reason. And this guy, to me, I learned more about baseball working with him over a 3-year period than anybody else I've been around. But when you're around him a lot, you're going to always pick his brains about different things with your colleagues. So, with that said, what's that? Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, like anything, the game evolves. I mean, there are things about the game now that, everybody's going to have an opinion on whether it's bad or good, but I think the pitch clock is a positive. I find the pitch clock now that I've kind of gotten adjusted to it now that they're not just flashing it on the TV, which I thought they would do. But they kind of have it off to the side a little bit, which, it still keeps the game the way it is, and they keep the thing off camera. But overall, I think it's been very good for the game. I think obviously you can't count on the effects of it in 1 year, but I think baseball will finally, grow. It'll finally grow like Rob Manfred's been saying he wants to do ever since he walked into office. So, all in all, though, I think baseball is just trying to adjust to what society is now, for better or worse.
Yeah, not only that, the one thing we can't forget about is the announcers have to adjust to it as well, because how they see it is how they have to describe it to you as well. Right. All right, this is our time where everybody gets to do a parting shot. So, Rick Curdy, you lead off.
All right. Well, I'm from Los Angeles. We got two teams. We got the Dodgers, but we got another team called the Angels. You got two great, exciting players, Mike Trout and Ohtani, two of the best players that we've seen in our generation, especially Ohtani, who can pitch and hit. But we got a terrible, terrible owner there in Artie Moreno. Mm-hmm. Last year I heard that this guy was leaving, and I said, hallelujah, thank God. He's a terrible owner, and now he's staying, which is unfortunate, because I am so sad to say that Mike Trout and Ohtani probably not going to get rings because of this guy. This team needs pitching, desperately needs pitching. He keeps getting these over-the-hill guys. They don't work out. The hitting's great. We need pitching. And for some reason, this guy doesn't want to do it. I know they won the World Series, but that was when Disney owned the team. But ever since Artie Moreno's been there, they've gone downhill. And it's just sad to waste the talents of someone like Mike Trout, who's going to the Hall of Fame, and Ohtani, who probably might go to the Hall of Fame as well. I mean, these two are two great, exciting players that you can build on. No drama. They play the game hard. They're not spoiled. They're not entitled. They're everything you want the face of Major League Baseball to be. And these guys won't win a ring. Are not going to win a ring, unfortunately, man, because of the owner there. Ohtani's probably going to go, and I see him going to the Yankees. Trout signed a long-term extension there. He's not going anywhere, and because he's a loyal guy. And it's just unfortunate to see these two guys, or even in Trout's case, not win a World Series, all because of Artie Moreno. So I really wish he would reconsider and go away, and so the Angels can get a new owner and hopefully bring a World Series for Mike Trout, because he absolutely deserves it.
Okay, Eric, go ahead. And we don't comment on everybody's parting. We let everybody do their own. Eric,
well, I think obviously I'm happy the way the Yankees started the season. It's been a little tough sledding with injuries to the rotation, but they haven't lost a series yet, which you got to be happy with that start. But obviously the Rays are going to be the Rays, which unfortunately they're playing up. They've got a pretty soft schedule right now. But I'm happy with the way they started. Haven't lost a series, took 2 out of 3 from a very good Baltimore Orioles team, and you can't I can't complain given the circumstances.
Okay, George, what's your parting shot?
Well, Scott, we had him on our show a little while ago. My parting shot is a thank you to Tom Gage. Tom was selected, the only writer, I might add, only media member that was selected to speak at the eulogy of Jerry Green, our dear departed friend who covered every Super Bowl for 56 years. Jerry did the eulogy at the funeral home, and I'll tell you what, in the sense of a Bob Newhart, and you guys might remember, Eric might not, but Bob Newhart was notorious for a great phone conversation. You didn't even have to hear the other person talk, because Newhart had the knack. Well, I'm telling you, Jerry Green, he simulated that. I mean, at Jerry Green's funeral, Tom Gage simulated that, and it was fantastic. And thank you, Tom Gage. There's a reason why you won that Hall of Fame Legacy Award for your sports writing skills. And Jerry, of course, won it for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the writer's wing. But Tommy Gage, you did a great job. I know your friend up there is looking down on you. And terrific work with your eulogy for our dear friend. And hats off to you, Tom Gage.
Yeah, well, Tom Gage, Jerry Green, friends of mine. So,
Yep.
yeah, really. And I'm glad we had him on the show. All right, my parting shot is probably where it should be, anyways, in the state of Florida. I'm going up there tomorrow, anyhow, is on the Tampa Bay Rays. Okay. 10-game winning streak, impressive. 9 games, scoring over 4 runs. I don't know what the score is now, but I'll go by with what I have at the moment as we're on the air. Yes, they swept the Tigers 3-0. Nationals 3-0, Oakland 3-0, and they're leading. If they win against Boston, that means you've got 4 teams that did not make the postseason. Okay, last year. And I will say this about Kevin Cash: he's the Albert Einstein of baseball. But it's a shame that they cannot get a crowd of over 21,000. Because if you stick this ball club anywhere else, they would probably have the building 80, 90% full all the time. The Tampa Bay Rays, to me, are a model franchise in the way they develop their players and they keep winning. But I'm not ready to buy them totally. Eric said it. They played a soft schedule. I'll be anxious to see how they play a lot of the better clubs, although we have to tell you right now that the divisional games, I think, are now 12 and not 18. But they'll see a lot more teams. But I'm happy for the Rays right now, but I need to see more of it before I can sit here and jump on that bandwagon. I'm not ready to do it. And more importantly, your worry should be getting the stadium in the right place. And I truly know, being a former Tampa resident, it should be on the Tampa side in Hillsborough County. So, great show tonight, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. I'm going to go around the horn here and let everybody know how they can get a hold of us. But before I go ahead and do that, I want to make sure that I go ahead and say this one more time in case you missed it earlier, that the audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. So you can listen to it, or you can please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the show. Okay. Broadcast. I guess the old school language of doing it. Want to be a guest? No problem. We brought people on before by submitting ideas. And please send those topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Or you can actually send them to me on Twitter at Tribune South as well. If you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So again, your ideas can either be sent to my Twitter account, which is at Tribune South, or the email address as well. And I'll be more than happy to put you on a show. We encourage new voices, and we'd love to have you on to be able to match wits ends with you as well. All right. With that said, okay, Eric, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can find me on my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I write all things baseball.
Very good. And one thing I should point out is our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, and kudos to Candy Ebling, does a marvelous job, not only putting the written content up there, but the broadcast. So there you go. Kudos to Candy. All right, Rick, go ahead. Is that Rick?
Rick, how can we get a hold of you, Rick?
Well, I didn't mute the guy. Try it again. All right, we'll get him momentarily. Try it again. Rick, you're on mute. All right, we'll get him. You know what? We'll come back to him. All right, George.
All right, I got a book called Detroit Sports Broadcasters.
You back, Rick? You back, Rick?
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, my mic went on mute.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Why don't you let everybody know they can hold you out? That's okay.
No, you go first, Rick.
Go ahead, Rick.
Okay. You can find me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm also on Facebook again at Charlotte Bats Baseball, and I'm also on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. You can find me on my website. You can email me, cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. And when you go on our website, please sign our petition. We want to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, George, go ahead.
Okay, back to the book. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. I just remembered there's a really good picture of Ted Williams. We talked about him earlier on our show. But you'd be surprised how many different celebrities and personas we have. Not only the broadcasters, but celebrities too. For example, Scott's in here with Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors, and Ernie Harwell's in here with Hank Aaron, and Paul Carey with Ted Williams. So you don't know who you're going to find in the book. It's a good find. It's only $20. And the link is on the South Florida Tribune website. I contribute to the publication, as well as the Downtown Detroit Monitor. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com, and also on Twitter at SandGSports99.
And obviously, Eric invested in it, right, Eric?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, Eric.
No problem.
All right. So hopefully, George, we'll find a few more people that can go ahead. And once again, Ralph Williams, thanks for being on. And my pleasure for the prayers. I know I've seen a lot of it on social media. I want to try to address it, but I guess there's no better way than with a national audience. So that concludes this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth. Please be joined by George Eichhorn, Rick Curdy, and Eric Katz. We thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we will catch you on the next edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Good night, everybody.